Hello, I'm Jonas Fouz, and I'm going to present the results of this study that I've carried out with José Antonio Mompeán at the University of Murcia. The study is called Twitter and English Pronunciation Teaching. I hope you enjoy it. This work shows the results of a pilot study that explores Twitter's effectiveness to teach pronunciation. Language teachers are constantly looking for resources that they can use in order to provide their students with input and opportunities to work with a foreign language. At present, language teaching is increasingly benefiting from Web 2.0 tools like blogs, e-learning environments, or social networking services. There are numerous studies that deal with the use of social networks in education, such as the one by Blattner and Fiori that explores some of the possibilities that Facebook offers in order to develop a socio-pragmatic awareness, or the one by Pritchard to develop communication skills with Facebook. If we focus on Twitter, there are also studies like the one by Grosek and Holotescu, exploring some of the educational uses of Twitter, or the one by Dunlap and Lowenthal on Twitter's potential to enhance social presence. But in general, in the realm of foreign language teaching, social networks are already used to teach vocabulary, to practice grammar, to develop communicative skills, or even to learn about the target culture. Teachers use these platforms to facilitate discussion in class, but also outside the class, offering learners the possibility to write and interact in English and practice from their homes what they learn at school or at university. In this study, we focus on Twitter, one of the simplest social networking services, but also one of the most popular, with more than 140 million users in 2012. Twitter was originally devised as a platform where users could read other people's updates for free, and one of the reasons why it became so trendy is due to its popularity among celebrities. It soon became a way of being up to date with news about your favorite celebrities from the very horse's mouth. But it also started to be employed for completely different purposes. For example, Java et al. Mentioned daily chatter, reporting the news or sharing information as some of the most common uses for which people employ Twitter. Dunlap et al. Talk about following professionals in the field, which may facilitate contact with experts and therefore offer a very valuable asset for learners, but also, as we mentioned before, to enhance social presence in online instruction. But Twitter has also been used in order to encourage participation in the class, as shown in the interview by Briggs to David Parry. Tweets, which are posts in Twitter jargon, are limited to 140 characters, forcing its users to be extremely concise. This is quite useful for language learning, since it allows the teacher to send short bits of information with links to authentic material. Moreover, it is easily accessible. Everyone can use Twitter from a computer at home, but also from their mobile phones. Besides, tweets can be delivered to everyone or in circles. For some people, the idea is to get as many followers as possible and to create a sort of fan base on Twitter, trying to achieve a certain degree of online popularity. Therefore, most people will have an open Twitter account, which means that all posts are visible to the public. However, if used for educational purposes, it is also possible to make it private, and therefore your followers will be the only people allowed to read your tweets. When users first open a Twitter account, their timeline shows all the updates by all the people they are following. Nonetheless, it is also possible to create lists in order to organize the updates you receive. For example, if we're going to use Twitter for educational purposes, it might be convenient for learners to create a list for language learning, for example, where they would receive all the updates related to language learning, such as posts by dictionaries, by the teacher, classmates, and so on. In this way, they can keep their friends' updates separate from what the teacher posts. Twitter can already be used to learn vocabulary thanks to accounts like Cambridge Dictionary, the Free Dictionary by Farlex, or Oxford Dictionaries. These accounts tweet words of the day on a regular basis, and tweets include the word in context with a link to their websites, where they show the definitions, examples of the words in sentences, and in the case of Farlex or Cambridge, also their pronunciation. The Oxford website only shows phonemic transcriptions, but it doesn't offer the audio files with the pronunciation of words. So we thought that we could take a similar approach in order to teach the pronunciation of a number of problematic words. And indeed, several Twitter accounts already focus on pronunciation, such as Pronunciation Guide by Forvo or Pronunciation Book. These accounts regularly post the pronunciation of words and sentences that can be accessed through links to audio and video files. In the case of Pronunciation Book, the links are directed to YouTube, but the videos only show the written spelling of words and sentences, they're not videos as such. Users can listen to words pronounced several times, with words also embedded in sentences. As far as Forvo is concerned, it is a sort of online corpus, where users from all over the world send recordings of their pronunciation of different words and sentences, therefore offering a wide variety of pronunciations of the same word, and also offering access to different accents, with words pronounced by male and female voices. In light of the above, the research question of our study was, can Twitter help students improve their English pronunciation? Our hypothesis was that Twitter will be useful in order to help students with their pronunciation of a number of words. Words that are especially problematic because of their lack of correspondence between spelling and pronunciation, or due to their stress pattern. Some words are particularly difficult to pronounce for Spanish speakers because Spaniards tend to rely on orthography as a representation of pronunciation. For example, words like archives are usually pronounced by students as archives, or words like gauge are usually pronounced as gauge. Therefore, after the favorable reception enjoyed by a number of studies that delivered vocabulary items via SMS, like the ones by Kennedy and Levy or by Thornton and Hauser, we thought that Twitter, a very similar medium, should yield very positive results too. Twitter is very similar to SMS, both in its accessibility and in the space allowed for writing. SMSs can obviously be received anywhere, but now thanks to mobile internet plans or 3G technology, smartphones also allow their users to access the internet anywhere. Besides, even though similarity in length might seem little useful, it is less intrusive to send students a 140-character message, if we are to bother them anywhere, than sending them a 10-line paragraph, for instance. Learning in 140 characters does make it possible to learn on the go, which is one of the currently active debates in the field of mobile learning, whether it is actually possible for a student to take advantage of 5 minutes on the train or while waiting for the bus. Furthermore, one of the clearest advantages of Twitter over SMS is that tweets are completely free. In this way, even though teachers would send short tweets with concise explanations to their students, if students needed further replies, it wouldn't mean any extra charges for either students or teachers. It would be possible to have a whole conversation completely free. Besides, the fact that Twitter allows sharing links to video and audio files is also particularly useful, especially for this study and for pronunciation. By sending students video and audio files of authentic materials, it made it possible for us to present words in a real context with real samples of language. 8 participants took part in this study. They were 8 native Spanish learners of English as a foreign language. 4 of them were learning English at an official language school, and the other 4 were starting a 4-year degree in English studies at university. The stimuli consisted of 75 words that were considered to be problematic for Spanish learners of English. The items were chosen from a databank of past pronunciation errors in exams, but also from anecdotal evidence. The items featured silent letters such as be in dead, I'll, come or bombing, lexical stress such as word initial stress in politics or Catholic, or phoneme-grapheme correspondences like the S in as for the voiceless palatal viola fricative in sugar. The 75 items were intermixed with other 25 destructors or words whose pronunciation was considered to be unproblematic in order to create a pretest. The results obtained from the pretest led to the selection of 27 items for Group 1 and 31 for Group 2. With these items, we created a battery of tweets featuring the target words. Tweets included short explicit explanations about the pronunciation points, with a link to a video or audio file which exemplified the pronunciation of the target word in context. Videos were often less than a minute long, with the intention of not intruding too much in the student's private time. Phonemic transcription was kept to a minimum. The use of the symbols was only made to refer to individual phonemes, but full transcriptions of words were avoided. The pretest was administered in order to check that the students didn't know the pronunciation of the words we intended to teach. It was an oral matching task in which students had to associate words with colors based on their impressions. They weren't told that the focus was on pronunciation. This task was meant to make students engage in an activity that would prevent them from concentrating excessively on the pronunciation of the items, as well as to make sure that they wouldn't comment on or look up the pronunciation of words, since this would compromise the actual gains obtained from the instruction. The Twitter-based instruction took place during approximately 6 weeks, with tweets being sent daily from Monday to Friday. Students had to confirm that they read the tweets by either replying to a tweet with OK or SIN, or ideally including comments or questions. This was meant to help us keep a record of the students' encounter with tweets, given that what we wanted to test was whether Twitter could actually guarantee an improvement in their pronunciation once they had seen the tweets. During the instruction, we answered questions and provided extra examples at the students' behest. Sometimes they asked about pronunciation rules, like whether the letter B is always silent before final M, or they compared the pronunciation being silent at the moment with other words that were pronounced similarly. For example, when we were teaching the word heir, someone who will inherit something, one student pointed out that it was the same pronunciation as the word air, what we breathe. After the instruction, participants received a post-test interview in the form of an oral production task. They were asked to read out the same words that had been taught during the 6 weeks in order to check whether they had actually obtained any benefits from the Twitter-based instruction. This time, students could also see the words embedded in sentences, and they knew that the focus was on their pronunciation. The results revealed that Twitter can help students learn the pronunciation of the target words, although, as in any type of instruction, the benefits obtained are highly dependent on the student's interest and degree of participation. A measure of the student's involvement can be obtained by the number of tweets that students learned during the instruction. If they read or confirmed the tweets, this means that they were actively participating in the study, and consequently that they could learn from it as well. As Table 1 reveals, Group 1 was significantly more involved than the second group. They read the vast majority of tweets, having read at 98.1%, while the other group only read at 62.4%, which is slightly more than half of the tweets that we sent. The data on Table 1 show the number of tweets that students read or confirmed during the instruction, but they do not measure whether students actually learned the words. It is a gauge of the number of tweets that students encountered, and therefore also potential gains. Obviously, words that were pronounced correctly in the pretest are not considered here, since students already knew them before starting the instruction. If we look at the results obtained from the instruction, Table 2 shows the number of words that students pronounced correctly in the post-test, as compared to the number of words that were mispronounced in the pretest, and also the gain rate. The gains obtained from the Twitter-based lessons directly correlate with the participation rates in Table 1. The group that was more actively involved, Group 1, obtained much better results than Group 2 in the post-test. Group 1 showing a gain rate of 70.4% as opposed to Group 2, which obtained 45.2%. It could also be argued that the data on Table 2 don't measure Twitter's appropriateness for the instruction, since the data don't take into account those tweets that the students missed. If participants didn't read a tweet, in theory, they shouldn't learn about the pronunciation of the target word that was featured in that tweet either. And therefore, if a tweet wasn't learned because the students didn't read it, the problem would not be the medium, but simply that they missed it. This is why a further analysis can be carried out by looking at the number of words that were pronounced correctly in the post-test, as compared to the number of words that the students read. The results in Table 3 reveal that the gain rate in both groups is only slightly higher than the gain rate in Table 2. Thus, even if students did read the tweets, the percentage of intake is still quite low in the second group, which obtained only a 46.1% as opposed to the 70.8% obtained by the first group. The results also show that there was a considerable number of tweets that students didn't confirm, but whose target words were pronounced correctly in the post-test. This was 1 word in the case of participant 1, 4 words in the case of participant 5, 8 words in the case of participant 6 and 10 words in the case of participant 7. This suggests that perhaps participants may have read the tweet but forgot to reply, or maybe that they have benefited from vicarious learning. However, the fact that they might have missed one tweet may be also attributable to the medium, since other platforms like Facebook would send a notification to its users whenever they receive a message, for instance. Nonetheless, a thorough discussion of these and other variables is not possible here due to limitations of time. The results obtained suggest that Twitter can be useful in order to teach pronunciation, or at least the pronunciation of words that are problematic because of their spelling or because of their stress pattern. As we mentioned before, the level of involvement directly correlates with the level of benefit. Group 1, the more actively involved, was the one which obtained better results. However, this study also has some limitations that suggest directions for future research. One such limitation is that the students' production went unchecked. The study didn't intend to train and monitor the students' actual pronunciation of the target words, or at least not during the instruction, but instead it drew the learner's attention to what phonemes they should pronounce, where the stress should be placed, or what letters should be silent in a number of words that the students had trouble with. However, Twitter proved useful in helping students understand the target issues and eventually self-correct their own pronunciation. To conclude, and as a practical application of the present study, it might be interesting for some teachers to send some words of the day with a focus on pronunciation, in a similar manner as Cambridge words or Oxford words tweeted a vocabulary item on a regular basis, or perhaps to send a pronunciation tip similar to those existing on traditional websites, like, for example, the UCL's pronunciation tip of the day. Well, thank you for listening, and I hope you've enjoyed the presentation.